This is a cool Alteryx weekly challenge, and I'm probably going to butcher the word wareki, so apologies from the beginning. But basically we're building a macro that takes in a list of dates, so we've got some normal looking dates and some of the wareki Japanese date formats. And basically we've got to build a macro that changes them either from the Japanese format into normal dates or normal dates into the Japanese format. So at the moment it's on Japanese to the normal dates, so we can see the output takes in those dates and makes them more standardized. Equally, we can do it the other way and just consider the dates and change them into the wareki Japanese format. So let's take a look inside the macro and see how we've built that. So the start here is just taking that same text file again. It's filtering based on whether there is a dash in there at all, because the dash kind of symbolizes that we have the more traditional date format at our disposal. So we use a quick auto field to change those into actual dates, and then we're going to use our era definitions here. We're going to do a quick multi-field tool just to pass those into proper dates from strings, so we know their format is month, date, year with a dash in between each of those. So we use the date time pass formula there to do that. And then we can just append those and do some filtering based on whether it's greater than or equal to the start of that period. And then we do need to do some checking quickly, tediously, because obviously the final end of the era, obviously, there isn't one. If I look here, there's a null is basically what I'm trying to say for the most recent era. So we just need to write a little bit of a complicated if statement just to say that, if the end isn't null, then, do the condition that field 1 is less than or equal to the end. Otherwise, just say that the field 1 is not null, which we know will be true, so therefore it will filter through correctly as we wish it to. So that's kind of how you get around that issue. I hope that makes sense. And then it's all just about changing it into the correct formats. So to get the number of years between the start of that era and our current start, I was using the date time diff, but I couldn't really get it to work. So what I've done instead is I've gone with just saying the year, the date time year of field 1 minus off the year of our start of the period, and then we add on a 1, and that seems to give us the results that are being looked for in this challenge. I'll do a better zoom this time so that I can actually interact with the panel here. There we go. So we're adding on a 0 to that difference at the start if it's less than 2 digits. It's unlikely to be over 3 because obviously it's defined by emperors' periods of reigns, and it's unlikely that anyone's going to be 100 years reigning based on the information we have. So we're just doing it length 2, padding it left with a 0 if it needs it, and then we're just forming up that wareki style of date. Now this looks a little bit complicated. Let's just split these out into some different lines so that it is easier to read. So we're having the era first of all, that letter, then we're having the number of years between the start of the period and our current date that we're looking at, that we calculated up here. And then we're just adding on a padded left version of the month and the day. So just in the same way that we were padding that difference with zeros, we're also padding the month and the day in case it's, the first of the month, or if it's a month that is less than October, So then that all works for us nicely. So that's how we get the date into the wareki date format. And you will notice that it's inside a container. And this container has a radio button attached to it that says wareki to date, even though we're doing date to wareki calculations in here. And the reason for that is that it says, if you read here in the action configuration pane, then you'll see that it says that if the checkbox is selected or the radio button, sorry, if the radio button is selected, then this container will be disabled. So basically, if I've selected on wareki to date, then that means I don't want to do the date to wareki conversion, so I want that container to be disabled. It kind of works a bit counterintuitively, that personally, I think, but that's how that works. So lovely. Basically, all we do now is we union them together and output them. But we obviously have to go through how to do the Waraki to date conversion first. So what we're doing, we're taking that data, all the Waraki dates, we're using a regex tool to just pass out the era. So we're just saying any letter, that's what I want. Brilliant. We join that up to our information from the era definitions, and then we just go about trying to make our more traditional Western date. So first of all, we need to work out the year. So we need to take the year of that start date that we have, and we need to just take the left 2 digits from our string field. So I'm going to zoom out again and show you how it's looking. Our field 1 has the H, so we're taking, if we replace the era with nothing, then we're looking at the first 2 digits there. So 15 for row 1 here, that is 15 years after 1989. So we do that calculation there. We minus off a 1 because just of the way that you're counting it, if it's because obviously year 1 is 1989, rather than that being year 0, so we need to minus off the 1 when we're doing this calculation. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And then for the date, we're just doing a date time pass of just saying that our format is going to be, we're going to have the year and then we're going to have the last 4 digits from here. So in this instance, the 0 to 24, so 24th of February, and that is going to then be in the format of year, month, day. So give us back our standardized, westernized date. Lovely. And then just select off the necessary columns, and that's how we work it. It all works out like that as a macro, as a standard macro. So hopefully that was useful for you. Hopefully that was a good sort of introduction to standard macros if you haven't seen them before. I'll just prove to you that it is a standard macro by going into my workflow and seeing that it is a standard macro. So hopefully that was useful. Thank you for listening.